What? All right, thanks for joining us here on Arc Salt Lake. I'm Brian Schnee. Wednesday night, February 12th. Tonight, we're taking a look at the retirement of BYU's longtime athletic director, Tom Holmoe. First, though, we're looking into the presence of an extremely potent opioid here in Utah. Carfentanil is what it's called, and it's got a lot of harmful impacts, including death. I spoke with the Drug Enforcement Administration earlier today about their efforts to keep this deadly drug off of Utah streets.
Carfentanil is a synthetic opioid, has similar characteristics to fentanyl, but it is 100 times more potent and therefore 100 times more lethal.
How much of this are we seeing in the state right now, or what is kind of the history behind it in terms of carfentanil movement into the Beehive State?
We've seen carfentanil nationally for several years, but it's creeping into the drug supply. It's been relatively new to Utah. I think about a year ago, last March, a DEA seizure, but it was a drug law enforcement agency here in the state that seized some pills. I think we've also seen it in powder form. So it's here. I can't say that it's in large, massive quantities like we see found, but any carfentanil in the drug supply is too much. It's something that we definitely need to talk about, be aware of, and be on the lookout for. If we look to our neighbors to the east in Colorado and down to the southwest border, what are they experiencing, and how is carfentanil coming into the market? The people who are ingesting it do not expect carfentanil to be in that drug that they've ingested. It's a lot of times as fentanyl, but again, it's so much more lethal and so much more deadly that users are catching them by surprise. I think ultimately, if it does begin to saturate our market over time, the common sense tells us that we're going to see a lot more drug overdoses and potential deaths.
Is it coming in a similar track to other narcotics and controlled substances moving into the state of Utah from cartels?
Yes. So certainly the cartels have their hands in the distribution and manufacturing, production of carfentanil. However, I wouldn't say that they have such a control over it like they do with fentanyl. So we are seeing carfentanil because it's new. It's sort of an emerging drug into the market. There are other players. It's coming directly from China in powder form. It's coming from Western Europe, from Canada, and certainly from Mexico as well. If we see more than likely, we will see similar trends to fentanyl over the last couple of decades, which is there is much profit to be made in the distribution of fentanyl and carfentanil. And when there are profits, those cartels will seize that opportunity and begin to take control over the majority of the supply.
You mentioned profit. What's the street value for carfentanil compared to maybe a fentanyl pill, for example?
Okay. So if somebody knows that there is fentanyl in it and it is being marketed as such, generally I will say that that's a misnomer. So it may be marketed as a more powerful fentanyl or a more powerful type of drug, but generally it's not being marketed as carfentanil, which again is 100 times more potent than fentanyl. It's being marketed in street terms, which is a stronger high, a longer high than the average fentanyl, fake fentanyl pill. If we look at carfentanil and the information that I've seen in our state, there's been less than 5 drug-related deaths linked to carfentanil. When you compare that to about where we're at in the last 12 months, about 735 drug-related deaths, it's a smaller percentage. It's still significant. It's something that we have to be vigilant and be aware of. But it's really kind of hard to tell. Our DEA office here in Utah has not seized any carfentanil in our investigations. We focus like a laser on opioids and fentanyl, and yet we have not seized any carfentanil. That doesn't mean obviously that it's not here. It is. Our partner and sister agencies have seized carfentanil. Our DEA offices in Colorado have seen massive quantities of carfentanil. They had a seizure, I think last September, of about 250,000 fentanyl pills. When they tested them, about 70% of those pills had carfentanil in them. So if it's hitting, that was on Interstate 70, so more than likely that shipment had made its way through the state of Utah. So we've got to be aware of it. I think we're probably going to see more of it, but we just haven't seen the quantities yet in our own DEA investigations here in this office. From last year to this year, nationally, you may have seen those numbers from the CDC that we have fewer drug-related overdose deaths. That's a positive sign from a national perspective. However, in the state of Utah, we had the reverse. So we continue to see an increase in the drug-related overdose deaths. So we are one of the few states across the country that did not improve, and so there's a lot of work for us to do, both investigative-wise, but also getting the word out about what fentanyl is and what carfentanil is, and that it's in our communities and on the horizon.
I think he comes back with something else with a minor, and the chances that he go to prison are pretty good.
In the wake of a 2 News investigation, the state probation agency is asking for a convicted child kidnapper to follow the most severe child sex offender restrictions, even though he's not a convicted sex offender. Chief investigative reporter Wendy Halloran told you about this a few weeks ago and has the new developments tonight.
Is there another female in here? This is your one chance to be honest. Where is she?
Mark Devine being arrested by Summit County Sheriff's deputies in 2023.
Go ahead and widen your stance for me. I'm just going to check for weapons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pull your shorts up.
Yes, sir.
Charged with kidnapping a 14-year-old girl, 5 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, and drugs. Summit County Attorney Margaret Olson gave Devine a plea deal dismissing all charges except for kidnapping, telling 2 News Investigates it was impossible to prove this case as an offense that would require Devine to register as a sex offender. Judge Richard Mrazek suspended the prison sentence of 1 to 15 years and put Devine on probation under the supervision of APMP.
This guy, he owns the car, and he's got some history that concerns me. So he's on probation. So I'm going to be letting his probation officer know.
Devine followed and stopped a 13-year-old girl walking home from school in December, tried to get her phone number and sell her a vape. January 10th, a hearing over this. Devine was ordered to undergo sex offender treatment. Judge Mrazek, appropriate.
To be clear, you weren't convicted of a sex offense. You're not appropriate for Group A sex offender conditions because you're not a convicted sex offender.
During a probation hearing hours after the 2 News investigation, Judge Mrazek contradicted himself.
Looking at the Group A conditions, all of these are appropriate and consistent with the court's order, except for the registration requirement. That is not consistent with the law. The terms and conditions of your probation are amended to include conditions A through M, as in Mary, of the sex offender Group A conditions. Not because you're a sex offender, but because those conditions are appropriate for the conduct for which you have been convicted.
Making it clear he cannot be required to register as a sex offender.
The registration requirement, which is number or letter N, as in Nancy, is not required and not appropriate under law, given the circumstances of this case.
I believe that this is unique.
Criminal defense attorney Sky Lazaro.
We don't have any type of even lower level sexual assault type crime that he's been convicted of where it's a kidnapping. But I'm also at the same time not surprised.
Wendy asked the Utah court spokesperson to ask Judge Mrazek about his recent reversal regarding whether Group A sex offender conditions were appropriate and why he changed his statement. An email said judges are not allowed to comment on specific cases outside from what they say on the bench. Glenn Mills, Director of Communications for the Utah Department of Corrections, which APMP is under, sent this statement. We appreciate the move to Group A conditions and believe it will help in our efforts to supervise Mr. Devine. Lighten it up here. Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, BYU Athletics Director Tom Holmoe announcing his retirement after 20 years. We will hear from the AD next. After 20 years, BYU Athletics Director Tom Holmoe just announced plans to step down. He led the Cougars through independence in football and into the Big 12 Conference, among many other things. Here's more from his press conference earlier today.
When I retired from playing with the 49ers at the age of 30, my dad remarked to me, "You're the luckiest guy in the world. You have not had to work a day in your life." I believe that what he meant was that if you love what you do at your job and you love the people that you work with, and together you create success, can you really call that work? I thank God every day for the incredible blessing of working at BYU for the past 23 years. I've played, I've coached, and I've administered as a Coug for making memories. Our collective memory bank is filled with sweet and cherished memories of the thrills of being a Coug. That someone who knew nothing about BYU or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a sophomore in high school growing up in Southern California could, one, find my way onto a team coached by the legendary Lavelle Edwards. Two, line up with the first-class teammates in every respect of the word. Three, meet and marry my dream girl, Lori. Four, get exposure at BYU to be drafted into the NFL. Five, return to coach the Cougs for 2 years, which led to jobs at Stanford, Cal, and the 49ers, only to return to BYU for a third time to become the athletic director. I can only say BYU has blessed my life immensely. I was passed the baton to play the role of BYU's athletic director in 2005. I knew at the time it would not be my duty to finish the race or to break the tape, but instead to run a good race and be prepared to pass that baton to the next BYU AD at the right time. I believe this is the right time. In 2005, when I first received the baton, we were already pretty darn good at BYU and had been for a few decades. But with the addition of some amazing coaches and a constant, steady stream of remarkable student athletes, we got better. You add to that a fan base that stretches, well, to forever, called Cougar Nation. A student section at games that's second to none, The Rock. Donors and sponsors that not only support the Cougs financially, but willingly and effectively teach us, players, coaches, and administrators, career, business, and life strategies. And we have, with all that, a cheat code for success.
All right, let's take a look at what's brewing now, because for once, Sean, it seems like things are in motion.
They sure are, and it's
I
not
say
happening
that
on the
because
weekend.
and you know what? I'm excited to see a more active storm pattern here.
We're still lacking snow here across the valley floors. We could get a little bit dusting, maybe up to an inch.
I broke the shovel out this morning just because I felt like I needed to. I did
it.
that.
Nice
and
little
made sure
dusting.
to sprinkle out a little salt too if the deliveries were made at the front door, and when no one suing me over it. I was very cautious today with our dusting of snow.
A little bit of lake effect snow yesterday, and now we get ready for some cold temperatures. And yes, some good snow for the mountains. We're in the 20s right now. Temperatures statewide, they're falling fast. Look at this. 9 degrees in Park City, 19 in Vernal, 16 in Panguitch, 21 in Blanding. The winds have been pretty calm for the most part here especially after our windy week last week. But here we go again. We've got 30 to 55 mile-per-hour wind gusts happening through the day tomorrow, especially into the evening and into the night tomorrow night. And it's going to be these southerly winds that will warm us up. You may be wondering, how could we even be forecasting some rain here in the valleys? Well, it's because of these winds out of the south. That's our evening. Another snowstorm into the northeast, into New England, back out through the Midwest, and a whole lot of rain down in the southeast. Meanwhile, we get ready for our atmospheric river event, already moving onshore of the coast of California, and will be sliding in our direction here through the next 18 to 24 hours. You'll see as we get into tomorrow morning, your plans are good to go. Traveling is great. Heading to work, no concerns along the roadways. We'll start to see increasing clouds, and then here we go. Here's that snow pushing in across the Wasatch Front, into the Provo area, up through Logan, into the mountains. This is when we could see maybe some light snow here in the Salt Lake City area before we see that change over to plain rain. And look at that, finally ending our dry streak, 76 days without any rain or snow in St. George. That comes to an end tomorrow. Look at all that moisture moving in through tomorrow evening. Statewide impacts. A little bit of scattered activity becoming lighter as we get into Friday morning as that warm air moves in, and then colder air moves back in as we get into Friday night and especially into Saturday morning. That's when we could also see another round of some maybe accumulating snow as that colder air works its way in. So kind of a long duration 2.5 day event, and we could see some good snowfall totals here. Salt Lake City to Cedar City, probably about a trace to 2 inches along the northern end of the Wasatch Front, where we have those winter weather advisories. Just north of Salt Lake City, we could see 1 to 4 inches, especially across the Cache Valley area. But the mountains, you're going to do fairly well. 1 to 3 feet of snow is heading our way. So we get ready for another cold one. We're into the teens and single digits. We head into the overnight. 30s for highs tomorrow as we start our warm-up. St. George, you've got temperatures into the 40s and 50s. Nicer for the weekend and drier as well along the Wasatch Front. Look at this active stretch of weather through the next several days. Sunday, we dry things out, get ready for another storm on Monday, moving into our area.
All right, bring it on. Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, unexploded practice bombs from World War II have been discovered at a park renovation site. Where they are and their impact during the war many years ago. Dozens of unexploded practice bombs dating back to World War II have been found under a playground not in Utah, but in northern England. The bombs were discovered during a planned renovation of the park, and the area was reportedly used to train the Home Guard volunteer army during World War II. And after the war, the ordnances were buried.
That's a pretty scary find. So far, 174 devices have been found. More excavations will be carried out to make sure the playground is completely free from unexploded ordnances. I hope so.
The Super Bowl of Caring is brought to you by Smith's, Mountain Home Services, Rocky Mountain Power, Chuck City, America First Credit Union, and Ford.
You can help end child's hunger in Utah with our Super Bowl of Caring. For more information on how to donate, scan that QR code or head to our website, KUTV.com.
I know what you meant.